Great. Welcome everyone to another Expats Portugal video where it's our mission to help you find success in your move to Portugal and also settling in here. Tonight we'll be discussing buying property in Portugal and what you need to know. Our special guests include Jacqueline from Mortgage Direct, who can help you with all your needs in relation to financing your property. We also have Wiley from Wiley & Partners. She's a buyer's agent here in Portugal, specialising in helping foreigners buy property. She is focused on the Cascais area, but her knowledge is valuable all over the country. And we also have Stephen from Spartan FX, who is the expert in helping people transfer small and large amounts of money to Portugal, which is obviously very, very important when it comes to purchasing property. If you're watching us for the first time, please ensure that you subscribe to the channel and click the bell so that we can update you every time we put up some new video content. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat and we'll endeavour to get back to you. If you do want to be part of our live audience in the future, please come to our website and join as a member at expatsportugal.com. Now I'm happy to introduce you to the host, Carl.
Good evening. Thanks, Astrid. Good evening, everybody. Look at this. People in from Ohio, Lincolnshire in the UK, Minnesota. Hello from a hot and humid wilderness, Denise. And Frozen Little Elm. Is it always called that? Or is that particularly the weather tonight? Frozen Little Elm in Texas. Viseur in Portugal. Fantastic. Good evening to you. And Cascais, of course. And California. Thank you, everybody, for saying where you're from this evening. Keep your locations coming in the chat. And, of course, your questions tonight of our panel on how to buy property here in Portugal with Jacqueline Mullen. Wiley's here, Wiley Lundqvist, and Steve Flack from Spartan FX. So I think the best thing to do to get started is to have a little bit of an introduction to. It's a bit dream teamy in here tonight for buying Portugal in property. Let's start with the star of the show then, Jacqueline Mullen from Mortgage Direct. How are you, Jacqueline? The dancing, globe-trotting star of the mortgage world. Where are you this evening?
Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So Portuguese setting speaking, but a bit further down south.
Wow. How is it in Rio tonight?
Warm, sweaty, funny people. Sure, there's dancing going on somewhere because we're getting close to Carnival, which is a big thing here. So yeah.
Practicing. Superb. So good to see you again. Please tell us a little bit about your company and yourself.
Yeah, sure. So thanks so much, Expats Portugal and Carl and Ashraf for hosting again. So we're Mortgage Direct. So it's not just me, but a team of, we're 20-something people. And we help people source mortgages with Portuguese banks. And that's basically our specialty, if you will. Yeah, speak to us if you want to know if financing is in the cards for you. If you don't want to spend all your own money on a property, we can help. And we gladly do so. And I have done so already very much.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And how long have you been with Mortgage Direct?
I've been with Mortgage Direct 7 years, and that's basically when we also set up the Portuguese branch because we're also active in Spain. And because I was the first Portuguese speaker to enter the company, it made sense to extend into Portugal because we had already a lot of people asking for mortgage advice there too.
Fantastic. So right there from the get-go in the Iberian Peninsula. Thank you for being here tonight, Jacqueline. Let's go to Wiley now in glorious Cascais. Well, she'll tell you that herself, of course. Tell us about your company and yourself, please, Wiley. Great to see you again.
Thanks, Carl. It's great to see you guys. I showed up in Cascais 5 years ago. I have a background with a real estate license in both Connecticut and California in the United States, and got here and recognized that people hadn't really heard about buyer's agents. They all kind of called the sales agent direct and didn't know that they could have their own team to work for them. So I decided to start my own company and work together with the buyers predominantly to make sure that they were represented. So it's been fun. It's been great. It's a beautiful place. It's fun to represent it, and I don't know. It just keeps growing.
You are a great unofficial ambassador, I think, of Cascais, and of course an Ironman participant. Have you been doing anything crazy like that recently?
Well, my team just signed up for another Ironman this year. We'll do a relay. I think we're going to call ourselves, because it's swim, bike, run. So I think this year will be splash, flash, and dash.
Excellent.
So it's fun.
Steve is already wondering if there's any places in the team, maybe.
Come on, Steve, you're in.
No, it's not.
Thank you, Wiley, for that. Let's go to you last but not least. Not for you then, Steve. From Spartan FX, tell us about the firm and yourself, if you will.
Yeah, so my name's Steve from Spartan FX. I've been with the company about 18, no, probably not even, about 14 months now. We would help you with your currency conversion. So when you're looking to convert to your euros, we're able to help you with that, with the process of, trying to get you as good a rate as possible, trying to make the property as cheap as possible, almost by using ourselves. I've actually worked in the business for around, I think it's about 7 years now. Our director, Neil, I've actually known, excuse me, since I was about 5. We actually went to junior school together, so me and Neil go way back. But yeah, no, I'd be on hand to help you with regards to your currency conversion and trying to make the process as simple and as stress-free as possible.
That's why people know and love you there. You mentioned Neil, Sarah, everybody knows as well, of course, and you're a well-loved company, and I'm sure people, and award-winning as well. You got the FIFO Platinum, I think, just recently.
Just moved up to Platinum, yeah. It's just been upgraded, so yeah.
Excellent.
So
Congratulations,
it's going really well.
And I dare say there'll be people in the chat who say, yes, love Spartan. It feels like dealing with a family firm, or dealing with the family, in fact, when some of your colleagues will answer the phone to the chagrin of their wives and partners sometimes to tell an American bank how to enter an IBAN number into the international
Exactly.
system. We hear of these sorts of anecdotes from your wonderful company, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. We're here to help. We obviously we help a lot of you guys over in the US, so we're always happy to speak out of hours and make. It's all about making it simple and as stress-free as possible. Just we know moving a lot of money is quite daunting, so we just try to make it as stress-free and as easy as possible.
Good on you. Thank you for being here tonight. Let's go back to Jacqueline then. We do have some FAQs that tend to come up when we're talking about financing. And the phrase, how you put it, I think, Jacqueline, was if you don't want to use your own money. That sounded really appealing. If you want to buy a property and don't want to use your own money. Tell us more about that then. Perhaps we could go to some of those FAQs. The sort of thing like, how much can people borrow, for example?
Okay, so thank you, Carl, for complimenting on... Yeah, well, that's what we do. We try to get money from the banks, and people are usually very happy with that, so they can use money for other purposes or invest it elsewhere. So basically, how much can you borrow from the bank? Starting point, if you're not a taxpayer in Portugal, it's maximum of 70% loan to value of purely the property price. So that's step one, and you need roughly somewhere between 7 to 10% for fees and taxes. So always bring around 40% of your own funds, and then the rest you can arrange through the bank.
Very
That's
good.
one.
Yeah.
The second element of the question is how much can I borrow is very personal. So that depends on income, existing mortgages, any existing loans or any expenses that you have. That's going to, add to the equation and the analysis the banks make. We do the same because we know what they approve, and then we tell you how much you can borrow.
Excellent stuff. Okay, so let's move on to another FAQ then. Any more criteria that people ask about? We often get the challenge of I think I might be too old. What happens what are the age limits? And I know you've got a workaround for that sort of situation as well, which might come as a relief to people. Yeah,
so 75. The banks would like you to have paid off the mortgage by the age of 75. So until that age, you can have a mortgage. We do help people who are closer to that age. And especially if there's 2 people in the application and one of them is younger, we could help in some instances, but it's not always an option with every bank. So it's definitely a per case basis if we can, we need to establish if that's an option available. So if we take 75, that's one criteria, age, other criteria, income and debts. Family size and source of your own funds is a relevant one too. So that's kind of in a nutshell things to think about when applying for a mortgage. And types of income. Where's your income coming from?
Yep. Okay. So, I'm sure that will inspire other questions from our audience here this evening. So do get those in the chat. The all-important question then of interest rates. Now, the Bank of England put up its rate, I think, by 0.5 point today, didn't they? I think ECB, I don't know if that's come out for Europe yet. America's up as well. How is the industry feeling at the moment, the financing and mortgage industry?
You're right on the dot or on spot to say that, yes, interest rates are going up. But the good news is that it's definitely not as much as in the UK or in the USA. So relatively, I just got an offer fresh off the press, not even an hour ago, 3.95 fixed for 15 years. So that's still a very competitive rate if you compare it to some other rates available around the world. And the good thing is it's fixed. So this is also not available through all banks. So it's good to talk to us and to find out which banks do offer it, because sometimes, or with many banks, sorry, if your income is generated outside of Portugal, they might only do a variable rate. Okay. And if you don't want that kind of insecurity, because talking about interest rates, so I'm not going to get too technical today. So, but yeah, talking about interest rate, the Euribor, which is the element that affects the variable rate you're going to get from the bank, is going up too. So a lot of people are looking for ways to fix in a rate. So it's good to know which banks do that, and not all of them do it.
And doesn't seem to be the most popular mortgage arrangement in Portuguese culture, does it? I saw that something like 90% of Portuguese people have variable rate mortgages, which is a cause of some concern at the moment. But you're talking about deals that you can get there with fixed rates, which people might take some security and confidence in at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. It's with fixed rates, you have a guarantee there won't be any surprises down the road. I mean, variable rates have been very competitive for the last 7 years. It was a negative Euribor. So again, I'm not going to get too technical because everyone's just going to fall asleep at the start of this webinar already. Yeah, that was negative. So that could be a good reason why a lot of people contracted in the past, and you could have saved quite some money. So if people do want to contract it, I always say, like, keep some extra savings to be sure that when it does go up in the future, you have something stacked away to buffer that increase.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, a bit of a buffer would be your recommendation there. Excellent. Okay, so that's interest rates. I guess it's called Euribor for a reason, isn't it? Can I have a mortgage approved before finding the property is also another frequently asked question. And thank you as well to Steve. We'll come to your specifics in just a moment, Steve. That's a great question. We'll come to Wiley and Steve as well for their view on this as well. We're helping people buying property in Portugal. But yeah, can you have approval before finding the property?
Yeah, to some extent. So of course, imagine that a mortgage approval is subject to the property as well. So at some point you need to have an assessment of the property that you want to buy, and that's going to give you a final mortgage approval. However, we pre-check through a form that we have if you're eligible, which is very straightforward. We ask all the relevant questions to establish what options you have. And then we can present you to the bank and get a first offer from them too. That's not 100% approval. As I just said, to get to that stage, you need to do also a property assessment, and then you get your final offer letter from the bank, called the FINE in Portugal. It's final.
The FINE.
FINE, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're looking forward to then, as the ultimate part.
That's your stamped document. This is what you're going to get. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, that's really good to know. And in fact, would you recommend that then, that people who are ready to buy to just get in touch with you and get that sorted to that level?
Thank you, Carl, for asking. We do. We have had many people who have to put down 10%. They get really stressed because they have no idea if the bank's going to borrow this kind of money, and then all your own money has to go in there. And in a worst case scenario, you wouldn't have the money. You're going to lose your deposit and things like that. So I always really urge people to talk to us early. Don't make any changes to your income, which can affect your lending options. All of these things, that they have huge financial repercussions. So yeah, I do encourage people to really reach out early, so that we can also at an early date advise on what options you have and which things not to do to prevent you from having a mortgage.
Very good. Okay. And we might talk to Wiley about this deposit business that can be lost, because that's quite dramatic when that happens. Before we go to you, Wiley, let's check out Steve's question, I think aimed mainly at you, Jacqueline. And if you do want to reach out to Jacqueline, it's jm@Mortgage Direct SL. You need the SL in there, .com. And that's the way, maybe just to drop your line, say, saw you on the webinar. Let's talk, basically. And a brief email at that stage, because I know you don't necessarily need people to go into encyclopedic detail at that point. You just need them to get in touch.
Yes.
Okay.
Then we do the fact form, the form, which is, sometimes people write me a whole story, and then I'm like, I'm still missing this piece of information, that piece, and I can't give you feedback, and they would like me to give feedback and I can't. So then I'd rather send a form. So I'm sure that everything we need to have answered, we can also include it in the analysis and then really give you feedback. That's perfect. The whole point of it. Yep,
there you go. jm@mortgagedirectsl.com. Steve's question then. Oh, before we go there, we have Who was this who's arrived fairly recently in Portugal? That's great news. I think that was Stuart. So good evening to you and congratulations on that. We've got greetings from Sintra. Somebody else from Dallas who's soon to be in Porto, which is great as well. Oh, yeah, first time online in Portugal. Congratulations, Stuart, in Budenche there. And someone else from California. Let's go to Steve's question. You might cover this, but how can one buy property from overseas as a non-resident? I guess talk to you and you will help them through. And what documents are required? The NIF is coming up here, the bank account, and what are the tax issues? So should we work through that piece by piece there, Steve's question?
If it's for me, for the mortgage part, you don't need to have
please.
a bank account because we will arrange it with the party that's going to lend the money. So there's no need. You will need a bank account at some stage, but we will make it as a, it's a joint deal, if you will. Yeah. You need a NIF and you need to have it to open up a bank account. So all kind of the other one feeds into the other one. And you need definitely a NIF to buy property because that makes you part of the Portuguese tax system. Of course, the state wants a little bit too there. Yeah, you can get as the pre-approval I just mentioned. I think that's a good first step from our side that we do the analysis and tell you how much you can borrow. And I'm just going to tie in another question from someone else who dropped it.
Well done.
You can have this can you have this this offer letter as you have it in the US? It's not exactly the same, but it's like an offer from the bank and it's only locked in when you have the fini. So it's not exactly the same thing as is official. Although, because we're in the middle, what can happen if you would walk into any Portuguese bank and just tell them, I want to know what this mortgage will cost me, they will give you an offer and there's basically no validity in there whatsoever. Of course, when we present the client, the banks know that we're just presenting business because the client really wants to know if they can get this mortgage. So they're not going to send us offers that can't materialize in the end. So that I think that's a big help there that, we get serious offers. It's not the same as you might know it from States, but it's a bit more guaranteed than having no analysis.
Okay, but it's not a legally binding document or contract at that point. Okay, the taxation then, I mean, you did mention that 7 to 10% taxes and costs to factor in when buying. Are there any other tax issues that Steve should know about?
That covers everything. So that is including the mortgage cost. So even if you wouldn't buy with a mortgage, you're looking roughly at these closing costs. And that has all the costs you can imagine when buying in Portugal. Yeah,
okay. And the other very interesting part of Steve's question is buying property to rent out. Now, how is that going to work? And does the lender need to know that from the start?
We don't really talk much about it because there is no such specific buy-to-let mortgages as you have them in the UK, for example. They don't exist. Yeah. There's nothing really illegal about renting it out because there is no such product. So there's nothing we can really put in the contract.
Okay, so what you do with it is your business afterwards, and of course, the recommendation may well be to get a proper contract registered with Finanças for that purpose. There, Steve, you might want to look into that. Superb. Okay, thank you very much for the time being, Jacqueline. This making offers and this frightening proposition, Wiley, of putting 10% down because you see a really lovely place that you don't want to lose in Cascais. I'm sure you've been with people in this situation. They don't want to lose it, but they might lose the 10% if they're not careful in how they negotiate that first part. What would you say about
that? In this particular scenario, this particular day, this particular week, the properties go so quickly that they barely allow reservations anymore. So, wow. I mean, 6 months, 9 months, a year ago, 3 years ago, people were begging for reservations and it was not a problem. The reservation form, once you read it, it's quite vague. It doesn't say you can stop this reservation if you do this, or if you find this out, or if this happens. It simply says, if this agreement isn't, if we no longer want to pursue this, we can pull back. And it scares me that it's as vague as it is, but it is as vague as it is. So I try to always add an annex or an addendum to each one of the reservations form. And again, this was historically, I haven't seen a reservation form in 6-9 months.
Well, because things
it goes too quickly.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Because I just talked to a client and she's like, oh, we were madly in love with this house and we were just taking a minute to breathe. And so we came back the next day and we said to the agent, okay, last night we talked about it. She said, I'm sorry, it's gone. 24 hours. Someone saw it online and just and took it. So it's daunting now as we speak. It goes so quickly that we don't have that 10% reservation anymore.
Right. You mentioned buyer's agents, quite a new, actually, before we move on to that and what you do specifically and how you can help people when it comes to buying property in Portugal, Wiley, it works both ways though. I mean, if we ever return to a situation where a buyer and a seller have made a deal, the seller has to refund as well if they turn their back on the deal, don't they? And people have done quite well with that, haven't they?
Correct. If we go to down payment, which is generally at 20%, again, that's a variable. We can go into 10, 15, 20, or 25. But let's say we're at 20% and 2 weeks from now, you decide, oh, I don't want to sell anymore. You not only owe me the 20%, but technically you owe me the double. My lawyer always says you'll have to fight for the second one, but the first one you'll quite quickly get back.
That's amazing, isn't it? Okay, well, tell us more about how you're changing the industry by bringing the idea of being a buyer's agent into Portugal and how that's what you arrived into and what you're shaking up currently.
Yes, I'm single-handedly changing the industry.
That's what I've heard. That is what I've heard.
I find more and more people calling themselves buyer's agent, but problematically with the larger firms, the larger firms are asking you to have, they need you to close as many deals as you can, under a time frame. And I've spent my first client, true story, we saw 51 houses together. And they bought the 52nd house. And most agencies wouldn't really suggest that amount of time would have value. It was a part-time job. And I recognize that people who need to close aren't necessarily buyer's agent. It doesn't go quickly enough for them. But that's a transactional relationship where a buyer's agent is not. It's a relationship. We're in it for the long run. We're in it for the good of you. And when I own my own company, nobody tells me what I have to do. So I don't have to produce or close or do any of those things. I can spend as much time as I want with a client until they know what they want, until we see what they want.
Yes.
And that's great. I have a client I worked with today, and we started out with a 500,000. He upped it to $1 million, and we are now looking at something for 2.2 because he didn't know what he wanted until we looked long and hard enough to find out what he wanted. And now he knows what he wants, and he knows the value of what he wants, and he's willing to go there. But he didn't know it when he came in. And he keeps saying, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to see that. It's not a problem. And I said to him, the more you see, the more you know. You need to be a strong buyer. I can't go in naive. I need you to know exactly what it is you want. And when we find it, that's when we close and not before. So I'm not in any hurry. And maybe that's the difference.
Well, what an amazing day you've had by the sound of it. How exciting.
They'll accept our offer. But anyway, this is it's offers in the United States, you go into multiples, people are bidding on top of each other. Here, it hasn't happened yet. If you come in under the price, absolutely, you can get up to the asking price. But I've yet to see 2 asking prices where someone said, go over the asking price. I see that in terms. Yeah. For example, you have a €2 million house. 2 people come in and say, I'll give €2 million on it. And this guy says, well, I want to do 10% down and close in 30 days. This guy goes, I'll give 20% down and close in 15 days.
That's like Dragon's Den.
Sorry?
It's like the Dragon's Den or something like a TV.
I know.
It would be a great TV, wouldn't it? Incredible. And I can understand then. So, you're making friends for life with people, and not many people in the real estate industry would necessarily say that, would they? They're in for the deal possibly. So I'm not making friends for life. You're helping people, and they're probably coming to you for the next sale or purchase.
Which is already happening. And I've only been doing this for 3 years, but I already see people coming off their rents and going into purchases and in keeping their houses and buying, properties for Airbnb or for their children to come down or for their parents to come down. So it's a long-term relationship.
Amazing. And there's good news and bad news about this situation. The good news is that Wiley is absolutely a specialist, and to be able to show people around an area, you need to know the area, and you specialize in Cascais and some neighborhoods a little bit beyond there. Bad news, of course, is that means you're not available for people who love what you've just said and want to use you in Porto.
I wish.
Yes.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
So that's your area of focus, and we know you're absolutely in love with the place. And thank you for the time being with what you've told us there, Wiley. 2 million, Steve. We want to change our dollars into 2 million euros. We can do that with you. And as you said before, it's quite a nerve-wracking moment when you push that button to change your dollars, especially 2 million of them into euros. Can you give us some reassurance of how it works with you at Spartan FX?
Yeah, so yeah, look, we can certainly help with moving 2 million. That wouldn't be a problem for us. But look, the way it would work with us, obviously you open an account, and you get an account in your own name with us. And then once that's all open, we would then obviously discuss what your requirements are. We'd go through everything with you, the whole whatever you would, what you're looking to do. If you're looking to try and if you've got your money available now, or if you're looking to maybe buy into the future with a forward contract. There's all different ways that you can look at it. Once your funds are with us, we look at, we don't automatically convert your funds. The funds are only converted whenever you tell us to. If you're looking for a certain rate, we hold on. We hold your funds. That's something that we do for free. So we don't charge to hold your funds. Even if you're looking to buy early and you want to hold your euros with us as well, they stay with us, and that's free as well. We don't eat into your funds or anything like that. So obviously that's the main real process of it. Your funds come to us. We would speak to you about converting them, and we look at the market for you. Look at, if you're in a rush, obviously we just need to get it converted. But if you've got a bit more time, we can try and, look at financial data and, what's going on in the world with politics, whatever else, and just see if we can, get you as good a rate as possible.
And you can fix things as well, because things can move against, can't they? I mean, let alone 2 million, even on a property of 300, 400,000 that people might be looking at to buy in Portugal. A month or two could make a difference. So you are able to fix and give some peace of mind on a certain budget.
Yeah, exactly that. So there's a couple of, there's what we call as a spot transaction. So if your funds are available now, we're able to buy that rate, and then we hold the euros or whatever you need us to do. That would be at that rate. You can buy into the future, which is what we call a forward contract, where we would need a 10% deposit, and then we would look at. You need to be able to tell us when you'd be able to pay your balance. So we normally do forwards up to a year. This does help people if they've only got 10% available at the moment, but they are due to get funds from maybe say a house sale or things like that. But obviously, we always hold 10% as if the market moves. So it's to make sure that we've got everything that we need to cover any movement in the market and things like that. But the further, we'd always say if you've got the funds now to buy them on spot, just because the further into the future that you buy, the rate does get slightly worse. But obviously, you're still buying at a better rate. And it does give you a bit of peace of mind because you know where you stand. If you know you need, say, like 500,000 euros, you have then got that. You know that the rate's not going to move, and then you haven't got enough dollars to buy that. Perfect. So it just gives you that peace of mind.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Feel free to jump in if anything else appeals to you from the conversation and what's in the chat. We're going to go back to Jacqueline now. Nimrod, sorry, I think you have a little bit of a complaint here. It would be nice if you gave answers also for people who are Portuguese residents. Thanks. I'm not sure if, do you want to address that, Jacqueline? Are there any huge differences there for people who are already Portuguese residents, or are you talking about Portuguese people, Nimrod? You might have to give us a bit more context there. What do you make of that, Jacqueline?
I'll do both. So sorry if I was ignoring anyone. That was definitely not intentional. It tends to be that the usual crowd of expats is not a resident in Portugal. So from a mortgage perspective, being a resident of Portugal has everything to do with where's your income coming from. So just having registered at the city hall and starting to contribute to the system, it doesn't necessarily make you a resident from the bank's perspective. So let's say we have a situation, you run your own business, that's in the United States, so your income is generated in dollars, and then you start part of the I'm not a tax advisor, so please don't hold me back on that if I get it wrong, but if you start contributing to the system, the banks would still see that the source of income is generated from abroad, so they would still probably take it as the same as if you're not paying taxes in Portugal. If you're a Portuguese passport holder and you moved abroad, then the same kind of logic applies that if your income is not generated in Portugal, usually the banks treat you as a non-resident. Now, I'll treat the resident groups. They can get, the main difference is that they can get 10% more from the banks borrowing. So they could get 80% in a very, very rare case, 90%.
There you go. Some good news for Nimrod there. And thank you for making that point. Yeah, of course, it's Expats Portugal, and we're dealing with people generally speaking moving, but glad we can help you tonight as well, Nimrod. And thank you for dealing with that, Jacqueline. What banks offer fixed rates in Portugal is a question from Janine. I guess that's that question might be quite hard to answer because it's going to change, isn't it? But there are certainly fixed rate offers available.
Exactly, that's the answer. So speak with us, and then I have to always understand everyone's picture to see which bank I can take you to, and then I can tell you, like, look, from everything I gathered, I think we have these options, and then I can also confirm fixed rate is possible, and then of course we disclose the bank at that stage too.
Okay, I feel another FAQ coming up here from both Jay and Ignace. This is about early payoff penalties. And of course, that can be quite punishing, can't it? So can you tell us a little bit about that within the Portuguese context?
Yes, it's either 2% or 0.5%. 2% applies usually to all fixed rate mortgages and 0.5% to all variable rate mortgages. And then you have your, how do you call it, your mixed rate options where you have, let's say, a mortgage for 17 years and 15 years of that is fixed. And then the last 2 years is also variable. So if you're thinking of things like that, if you're really sure you want to pay off early, then it's interesting to look at options like that, because then you can say, well, I plan to pay it off in X years time, and then you fix it for so many years, and then when it becomes variable, you pay it off. So you have the little bit of best of both, where you have the guarantee of not any fluctuations in your monthly payments, and then when you want to pay it off, you have the lowest penalty too.
Very good. Thank you for addressing that. Yes, early paying off there. This has never occurred to me before, but Ken asked, can one get a mortgage with a golden visa purchase?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot something I have to add to the previous question. We also have a bank that offers you to pay off every year 25% of the capital outstanding at no penalties.
So okay. So that's a good workaround.
Someone who really wants that, and if we can offer this bank, because again, that's subject to profile, then we can look into that too. Golden visa. Well, I'm not the golden visa or the tax specialist or anything that has to do with immigration, but I do get the basics of it. We have had clients before. So what you can do, you need to put at least 500,000 down. And then the additional, you could top up with a mortgage. So let's say you want to buy 750 property, 500, you're putting down of your own funds to qualify for the golden visa. And then the 250 can be borrowed from the banks. And I don't think that endangers your golden visa options.
But the main golden visa chunk, by the sound of it, needs to be your own money. And the borrowed money is on top of that rather than instead of it. Okay.
Yeah, because the country really wants money inflow. So
yes.
Money from a bank in Portugal is not an inflow of cash from abroad.
Rather than somebody coming in with a massive debt alongside them. Okay, yeah, that's understandable. That makes sense. Yeah. Brilliant. Is the mortgage interest paid on your mortgage tax deductible in Portugal? Great question. Good evening to you, Global Nobles.
We need the tax advisor, really. I'm not sure we have one on our team. I don't think so.
The dream team is lacking the tax advisor tonight. We'll put that right in subsequent webinars for sure. But certainly, Global Nobles, let's put that into the forum or get in touch with the team, admin at Expats Portugal, and we can follow that up for you and make sure we've got a good answer for you there. And thank you for being here tonight. And of course, we will conclude the recording in about 5 or 10 minutes time. We'll include the more universal themes here, and then we'll go to specific and more personal questions when we've concluded the recording, so they won't be on the internet forevermore. Barak, is the economy in Portugal similar to the US, where the market is declining and prices are dropping? Also, is cash still king? Good questions. Can you get the property for a bit less if you offer all cash versus mortgage? Do you want to take those one at a time? Is the market declining and prices dropping? Wiley says no. Jacqueline, I suspect, says no as well in Portugal.
The only thing I can add to is, like, that's why I said, like, get a mortgage approval early. But I guess for Cascais, for sure, there's no negotiation. I don't know if there's no negotiation possible for any part of Portugal about the price, but I mean, it has helped in the past, but maybe Wiley is more aware of how open the vendors are for negotiations.
Wiley, yeah, I mean, you've got colleagues in the industry all over the country, I suspect. Things aren't showing any sign of slowing down yet, are they, in Portugal?
No.
Simple answer. Okay, let's move on. Thank you for that. All right. But you can answer this one. Is cash still king?
That's interesting. And the only real difference is that if I have a seller who's interested, once again, we're not going price increase, we're going terms. If I have a mortgage versus cash, he's going to close quicker.
Yeah.
I don't need someone to come to the house and assess it and go through those processes, which can take a little bit of time or a lot of time. Because if I don't like my first offer from the mortgage bank, I'm going to go do another one. So I need another assessment of the house. I had someone who assessed a house 5 times. And if I was a cash buyer, it would have been closed much quicker.
Yes.
So that's a question. Yeah.
Okay. And with,
can I add to that, Carl?
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah, so if in that subject, if someone is needing a mortgage, again, we stimulate you to do the mortgage assessment early because it does save time in the process. And I've never had a situation actually where a property was accessed more than one time, or where they got really bad values or something like that. So I think when you have that first step of the assessment done, that means you as the mortgage applicant, and you definitely save time along the way and can move quicker. In the past, it would give you a negotiation advantage, but I guess that's the past.
That's the past. Okay, thank you both. Go on, Wally.
Well, I mean, to your point, Jacqueline, if someone came in with your FINI and then I had a cash buyer, you're right, it would be same. So if they engage your services earlier and they come in with that documentation, there would be no difference. And again, I might not have a seller who's interested in closing quickly, so it's not necessarily used against you.
Yeah, good to know. Okay. Thank you. Are you frozen up there, Wally? I think we'll come back to you on that, because Nimrod loves the sound of what you do and would like to know how much it costs. And let's go to life insurance. We haven't covered that yet, Jacqueline. So what insurances are required as part of the mortgage and the borrowing?
Some banks insist that you have life insurance, other banks don't. And again, we know which ones don't and which ones do. Okay. And we touched a little bit, well, it was asked about the residents. There's a little benefit of being not a resident, because it's much more difficult to insist on life insurance cover.
If you're not a resident?
Yes.
Okay.
So there can be situations where a bank is going to say, for whatever X reason, they do insist on life cover, but we do have options where it's usually not insisted, or not asked, or not covered. The only one is home insurance cover. So that's contents and the building itself, which is mandated by law. And I think everyone also wants home insurance, but that's the only thing that comes with having the mortgage.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Great question there, Jennifer. Somebody was asking for Wiley's details. They've been put in the chat if you're looking for those, and the details of all our Dream Team correspondence tonight will be made available to you. Don't worry about that. Naive question, you say, Jay. It's a good question. Why not simply transfer $500,000 or similar directly from the US bank into our Portuguese bank account? How does Spartan FX help? Steve, you're a bit more competitive than banks, right?
Yeah, we're a hell of a lot more competitive. Well, I'm going to say that. Yeah. No, look, banks, they don't concentrate on foreign currency. It's more of a bit of a byproduct for them. Whereas we concentrate on it on a daily basis. We try to, like I've said before, try to time your transfer. Like you say, if you're doing $500,000. Only a slight movement in the market can cost you a few thousand. It's we try to get this as quickly as possible for you as well. We can even put in like limit orders. So if there's a certain rate you're looking to buy at, we can put that into the market, and that then automatically gets bought, with your consent and things like that. So we make it cheaper. We offer better rates than the bank does. We offer a better service than the bank does, because the bank will just, that's the rate on the day. That's it. With ourselves, like I say, it's tried to be timed. If it is quick and you need to get it done, then that the rate is the rate on the day. But if you're able to take your time with it and things like that, then we're able to try manufacture this to make the property you're buying essentially cheaper. So.
Amazing. I was going to ask you a cheeky question. Like, what do banks like doing? I suppose lending is the main thing, isn't it? And so that is a great question, Jay. Thank you for asking that. You may well save yourself or make yourself, whichever way you look at it, a whole lot more extra by going to a more competitive trader of currency than your bank might be. I mean, if you take a check in a foreign currency, they take it off you, don't they, and say, well, you basically do a little contract, don't you, to change it on the day, and you might see the money within a few weeks. It's just not their thing, is it, doing currency exchange?
No, not at all.
There you go.
No, not at all. That's why that's why we're here. We try and make it as smooth as possible for you, and it's quick. It's as much as it sounds like it's longer, because you're going through someone else. It's not that long. It's as soon as it gets to us, we can get it into Portugal the same day, or very late the next day as well. So it's quick. quick services.
When you're available on WhatsApp, as some of your team
exactly
facilitate those processes. Paul is showing his appreciation, I think, for the speed of your service there. Thank you, Paul, for that. Thumbs up from Paul, a proud house owner in the Algarve there. It looks like he's used your services there, Steve. I think the final question then, a kind of generality, a frequently asked question. What sort of properties, Jacqueline, do the Portuguese lenders like to lend on? There's some talk about new builds and wooden constructions. Do they like to go off-piste and do things that are a little bit different, or are they quite conservative and traditional when it comes to lending?
Okay, so I can tell you what they don't lend again. Some people fall in love with these very rural located properties. That's kind of a ruin, and then they want to updo it totally. No, because they're probably built on agricultural land. So that's illegal, basically, to build anything. Even if there's a beautiful thing built, that doesn't make it more legal just because there is something already.
Yes.
Wooden houses. I actually have a client, and there's only 1 or 2 banks who are going to do it, but they do it. And it needs then to be conditioned to lots of, rules that how do you say that fit the bank's criteria in order to prove it. And new builds, and I think that's interesting, fresh off the press or something. Not as long as it's been quite recent, put it that way.
Yeah.
You can actually get a loan for a new built house, and if you have to make down payments, you can get a loan without even owning the property or having for making the deposit, basically.
On something off plan.
Yeah. So the house is not being delivered yet, and you are not the owner of anything until the final, stage of the build is done.
Yeah.
That's when the ownership is transferred. You can actually borrow up to 50% of the deposit prior to being the owner of the house, which is quite unusual. They didn't do it more than a year ago.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I think that's everything for the time being, unless you think there's something I may have missed or forgotten to ask you about, Jacqueline. But I think that's a great starter there. And you're with us for a little bit longer now after we stop the recording. Thank you so much for the time being, Jacqueline Mullen of Mortgage Direct, jm@mortgagedirectsl.com. Steve Flack is here from SpartanFX.co.uk as well. And I think Wiley may be here, but we'll make sure that all the contact details of our panel tonight are in the YouTube notes as well. So thank you very much for your excellent performance so far.